Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Protestant Education channel. Today we're doing another interview. Today we have Christparency, whose channel is dedicated to addressing misconceptions about Christianity. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to see what we're going to be able to talk about today.
Absolutely. So, is there anything more you want to say about your channel, or do you just want to get right into it?
All I want to say is basically I started my channel because I wanted to inform people more about Christianity because unfortunately it's not a topic that a lot of people are talking about in mainstream media. And so I'm just my ultimate goal is to really just help people get into Christianity more and to try to better understand it on their own.
All right. Sounds good. So, my first question here is your channel is dedicated to addressing misconceptions about Christianity and Protestantism. What, in your opinion, is the biggest misconception about Christianity? And which one is the most destructive, in your opinion?
Hmm. So I feel like the biggest problem with Christianity specifically when it comes to the different sects is that people really have a very big mentality of it's us versus them. It's Catholics versus Protestants. It's Eastern Orthodox versus Catholics. And the problem is that we can get so easily lost in our specific church being the one true church, or we can get lost in what we specifically believe in trying to force it onto other different Christianity or other parts of Christianity that we lose focus of what Christianity is really about and who we actually need to be focusing on teaching people about Christianity. We need to be reaching out to those of other religions like Muslims or Jews or atheists and telling them, and actually work on informing them about what Christianity is about, not criticizing other Christians and informing them why we think that they're wrong. It's obviously good when we get into specific parts of theology. Especially when it's having to do with more bigger faith issues. But nowadays in the Christian community online, the online Christian community specifically, we can get so caught up in trying to prove that we're right and try to prove why the other side is wrong when we need to focus more on what Christ has actually commanded us to do, which is going out and preaching the word and the gospel and informing things to people that they don't know, not things that they think they know and try to prove them wrong.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I can totally agree with that. I do think there's a lot of online debate, and while some of it can be important, a lot of it is just overdone at this point.
Yeah.
My my next question here is, how can we as Christians work towards making our defenses of faith more transparent? So this question is supposed to be specifically addressing people who object to Christianity because of its institutional history. Sorry. A lot of criticisms with the Crusades or the Inquisition, things like that. How can we, even a lot of the Old Testament violence, how could we be transparent about our responses to that while also holding to a lot of the history of that and kind of addressing the, more bloody parts of our history as a religion?
Right. Well, so the first thing that is, and probably the most crucial part, is to not blatantly reject something that is a fact or something that is apparent. Because when you start pushing away the truth, it ultimately is going to cause more trouble than it's going to solve. We need to be open about the church's history, and we need to be open about what is actually true, what the Bible says, and then build off from there. And instead of dismissing it, we need to accept it, and we need to ultimately try to reach out to others and ourselves, honestly, in in explaining why certain things happened or why certain things were wrong and why certain things were right. And we need to accept that we're not, the Christianity is not a centered or a religion centered on man. It is a religion centered on God. And often man makes big mistakes and they will do things in the name of God when it's really for themselves. And that's a big problem. So what we need to differentiate is the things that are bad is almost always because of personal reasons. The things that are good are hopefully centered on God, and we need to really just try to talk more about the good things that Christianity has done, and try to emphasize, especially using the Bible, why those things, why, just really the why are those things good? Why are we doing those? And then the bad things that can seem, because there's a lot of things that are seen as bad by the general population that within Christianity is good, or vice versa. Like
Right.
we can do things that seem wrong at first, but understanding it within the more narrow aspect of Christianity, hopefully understanding our point of view, because I've always believed that in order to disprove or show why you're right to the other side, you need to look at it from their point of view, from their way of thinking, because you can have two separate sides that believe in the same verses, the same scripture, but have two different meanings, and then you're not going to ultimately get anywhere because you guys are talking about the same thing, you agree with it, but you have different
Hmm.
understandings of what it is. It's the same thing with atheists and Christians. Is atheists have a certain worldview and Christians have another, and they can both agree on the same things, but their understandings are different. And the point that we need to
Well, sorry, you cut out a little bit
information
there.
out to them. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying that we need to get the non-Christians to understand our side a little bit more, in order to that they can see like where we're coming from. Because if they are in their mindset about what we're saying, then they're not really gonna understand the points that we're trying to make.
Yeah. All right. That was a really good answer. I really like that. Yeah, I think I always agree with the arguing from within someone else's point of view is always better than trying to keep arguing from yours.
Hmm.
Um, so my next question here is this is a bit of a fun one. As someone who does a lot of videos talking about denominations, what are some of your biggest takeaways from some of these other denominations? And you are PC USA for the audience, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I actually did make a video on this specific topic a little while back. I believe that if I remember correctly, the video was called "What Makes a Perfect Christian," and in that video, I go over the different aspects of each denomination that I appreciate. And unfortunately, the things that make a denomination appealing are often the things that are also their biggest downfall. So, because you can always, I know this is kind of outside of the scope of Christianity, but there is some truth to it in a way. That there's always going to be some good in evil, and there's always going to be some evil in good. Now, a denomination can have things that I really respect about them, but ultimately those things, the good values that can come from that, are also what also lead to what makes that denomination bad in the first place. And so it's a bit of a tough decision, because it's you don't want to like cherry pick specific parts of a denomination and then make that statement like over the whole entire denomination. And so I try to be very careful when I am praising a certain aspect of a denomination, because I don't want them to hear that one thing and then think that that's my overarching opinion or the overarching agreement on that denomination.
That's
Um,
fair enough.
and so I would say that we need to focus, like when it comes to ecumenicism, we need to focus more on what we agree on. And I know it sounds kind of pacifist, but when it comes to
I don't think so.
when it comes to different denominations associating with each other, we can get so lost in what's different about them that we forget what we have in common. And I feel like that's a way that Satan inserts himself into our denominations, is he gets us to agree on our disagreements, when we need to focus on what makes us strong. And when other denominations do something wrong, we need to have the accountability to call them out on it. And that's a big problem that I have with the one true church mentality, is that you automatically have to assume that you're correct, which I do not like that, because I've always been pro, if the truth proves Christianity, then we shouldn't shy away from the truth. And so we need to uh, focus on the unity and the things that we have in common. And when we do discuss about the things that we disagree with, we just need to be more. We need to be more charitable, and we need to be more understanding.
Hmm.
But all this to say that I don't personally think that there is one true denomination. I don't think there's one true perfect church, which is my personal opinion. Every single denomination, I see at least one major problem with it. At least one. It's more
Hmm.
about which denominations, um, most of their teachings, which of the churches agree most with the Bible. Because I don't think we're going to be able to ever have a true denomination. I did make a video on this in the past. I think Anglican is probably the closest to what a true church would look like, where we have disagreements on secondary and tertiary issues, but we all need to be united on the primary issues. And oftentimes we will get divided on things that we feel like are primary issues, but aren't in the grand scope of things. Um,
Hmm.
but ultimately, it's how God calls us. We're all different people, and we're all called in different ways. That's why not everybody's Lutheran, or not everyone's Methodist, or whatever denomination you want to pick. Um,
Hmm.
and so I feel like that because everyone's different and we all agree with different things, that it's important to focus on what keeps us together.
All right. I actually really like that answer. I like the dedication to ecumenism. I'm a big fan of ecumenism myself. So the next question is a little bit more personal. I wanted to ask more about your transition to joining the PCUSA. If you were in the PCUSA before, and what made you join? I guess I couldn't find any real video specifically talking about that, and so I was just kind of curious.
Right. Yeah, I probably should make a video on that at some point. Um, but
I haven't
so
done one for me either, so.
right. To keep it short and simple, I grew up from a mostly Baptist and evangelical background. The longer I'm on the internet, the more I realize how common that is, because Baptist is a very popular denomination here in America, and
Hmm.
uh, and I think God is leading people, Gen Z, more towards like what Christianity is actually about, and he's growing our understanding on how Christianity actually works, which I think is why we see a lot of evangelical and Baptist people in those denominations drawing more towards Catholicism or Presbyterianism, or what mainline Protestantism, really. Um, and I'm just one of those many cases where I realized that when I first became saved, that's when my knowledge in Christianity only ever grew, and I ultimately realized that the PCUSA, along with many other churches, well, many other, not like 40,000 denominations, but many other churches do also have a grasped reality of what Christianity is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I'm not here to say that you should join the PCUSA because I agree with everything that they teach. In fact, I just talked about that, how not every denomination or church teaches everything perfectly. But the point is, I think what we should put first when it comes to choosing a denomination or a church is it institutionally sounded in history, and from there, then we can worry about everything else. The PCUSA, I know, is a legitimate church in America, and when we need to put that first, because we don't want to get caught up into everything that the church teaches specifically, and whether we agree with that or not, because I feel like that's what leads a lot of people to the Baptist theology or evangelical
Hmm.
theology, is that we can get so caught up in what the church teaches. But I've always subscribed to the idea that it's not about, like, that church is not about you. It's not about what you believe. It's about supporting Christ's founded church, and supporting that church no matter what you think, because it's Christianity, and this religion as a whole isn't about you. It's about subscribing to Christ's church, and then we can focus on the more secondary issues. There are some things about the PCUSA that I disagree with. There's a lot of things I agree with it as well. But I don't think the things that I disagree with will ever be enough to make me have a serious consideration to leave the church.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should focus on staying in our church, and if there's something about the church that you don't like, either look into it more or actually try to advocate for the change.
Okay. All right. I really like that. So the next question is, I've seen you speak about how Christians are tools. How can we use our modern resources to be the most effective tools that we can be?
Yes. So first and foremost, as any Protestant would agree, study and read your Bible. That's the most important thing. Nothing goes above that. Second would be prayer, which puts things into God's control, which is very important. We need to focus that or understand that we can't control everything. But we need to pray that it aligns with God's will. That would be second. And as for third, we need to actually take action. We can't just pray and read our Bible and hope that everything is going to work out the way that we want it to or the way that we think God wants it to. We actually need to go out and do things. God works through us. He won't do it mentally. We have to actually physically do it. And so the first step would be to leave any church that is not a legitimate church. And then what we can do is we can use the resources that each mainline church has to advocate for that change and to actually make that change. Because if we are just out here pushing our ideas, but we're not actually doing anything to help it, it's not really going to get anywhere. And I'm honestly kind of preaching to myself here because I do need to work more on actually doing things to help the church instead of just telling people. But what I hope to do in telling people is to actually inspire them to make that change,
Mm-hmm.
That's really all there is to it. I mean, all we can do is try to align our will with God's and hope that He does so in a way that can lead to actual good change.
All right. I like that. I like that. A lot of kingdom theology over here. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, for sure.
So my last question is something that I really like in all of your denominational breakdown videos is very early on you signal that a lot of what you're going to say is your opinion. So this whole video or this whole interview, you've been talking about not making a big deal out of the differences, being united, not wanting to make a big deal out of the differences. When you make those videos, how do you try to separate what you've been talking about the whole thing with what is true versus what is more of an opinion when you try to when you do represent these other traditions? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
A big problem with a lot of apologists or Christian YouTubers these days is they go in with the mindset of I'm right and here's why. I try to go in more with the mindset of here's what I believe and here are the history and here's the facts. Draw your own conclusions from what I am telling you here. If you think that something I said was right, then absolutely wonderful. If there's something that you think that I said was wrong, I don't mind being corrected as long as it's in a respectful manner.
I feel the exact same way.
Exactly. All I like to do is I like to look at the facts. I'm a very analytical person. I like to look at the facts and then I draw my conclusions. No matter what philosophy you subscribe to, that's just how it works. That's just how people are. They look at facts or emotions or feelings, which I wouldn't recommend doing, and then they draw their own conclusions. That's simply what I'm doing. I'm putting my findings and my conclusions out there into the world. And if someone can convince me that I'm wrong about something, I am more than willing to be open-minded about that because that's where I come back full circle, is that I fully acknowledge that I do not know everything. And that's why I state that at the beginning of every video. I want people to know that I'm not going to be objectively criticizing their denomination. I'm not going to say that, here, this is what the truth is, and here's why you're wrong. I want people to actually be able to think for themselves. And so I don't want them to listen to what I have to say and them just agree with everything that I say. Obviously, there's going to be exceptions. Like I get a lot of Catholic and Eastern Orthodox comments, just either criticizing me or anywhere from criticizing to insulting me, but that's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
But the
I still haven't
problem
gotten
is,
the Catholics and Orthodox yet. I'm still
right.
waiting.
But the problem is with Protestants. Since I have a Protestant perspective, Protestants can agree with me and believe everything that I'm saying. That's the one side of the extreme. The other extreme is the Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox who won't listen to anything that I have to say and criticize it with no actual like constructive thought. I'm trying to break those barriers of the two extremes, and I'm trying to bring unity with the different denominations by understanding one Protestant's perspective and actually leaving the video, leaving you thinking and wondering and learning and wanting to look into it rather than just iron or steel manning your already own formed beliefs.
Right. All right. Yeah, no, that was a great answer. I really like that. That's all the questions that I had written down. Do you have any questions for me before we kind of wrap it up here?
Um, yeah, I guess I would just like to just give me a quick overview of what you've heard me say here today. If is there any major disagreements that you had, or what was your biggest takeaway from what I
Well,
discussed here?
you sound very dedicated to ecumenism, which is something that I very much appreciate, something that I really enjoy. And I agree. I think there is a lot of Christian infighting on the internet that at a certain point kind of gets a little trite and old. I was talking with a buddy of mine about this the other day. Because I'm very early on my channel, I've put up a video saying I'm not going to debate. I don't want to debate people. I'm not going to debate people. And it's just because I don't want to, because there's a lot of beliefs that I respect and I don't really have a problem with. I just, there's a lot of things within Calvinism that I don't necessarily agree with, but I'm also Methodist and Wesleyan Arminian in theology, so that kind of that tracks. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I guess I kind of agree with that. I don't really try to make a big deal about my disagreements with other Christians. That's part of why I want to do this interview series and kind of engage with other creators with what their content talks about and kind of where their content aims. But yeah,
Absolutely. And I if there's any takeaway that I could have you guys take away from this is to just be open-minded. It sounds simple, but it's really just true. Just because I'll admit there's some major problems on Christianity, mainly as of late soteriology, that I'm almost completely like hopeless at. I still have no idea. Um, the all you can really do is just try to understand both sides, and
mm-hmm.
what matters the most is align your beliefs with what the Bible teaches.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is going to be it from us today, I guess. Everybody go and subscribe to Christparency. He does really good videos. I've been shouting him out on my Instagram the past couple of weeks. I've been really liking what he's been doing. I guess also subscribe to my channel. That'd also be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. God bless you all. Have a great rest of your night or day.